How are the young Lakers keeping it together? Is Kyrie a different player in Boston? How can Andrew Wiggins improve? The only question left is, say it with me, you in? Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown podcast / live show with, as always, joined by Dave Dufour at Dave Dufour NBA, who's an hour later these days in Arizona, a very strange time zone warp. But I'm glad you could be here, Dave, sneezing and all.
Yeah, you know, it's, I guess we're pushing 11 o'clock at night. Arizona doesn't have daylight savings time, so when everyone else's time change, we get all thrown off. You and I are half the year we're on the same time zone, and then during the winter, we've got that hour difference. And so it's that hour makes a huge difference when you're waking up really early with a puppy.
But you gained an hour anyway on Sunday, so you must be like on Mars.
No, I didn't gain anything. My time didn't change. I don't touch the clock. It's great.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the whole point, is that you didn't gain the hour.
Right.
Okay. Well, all right. Well,
yeah.
Anyhow, here we are together at the same time, even though it's not the same time anymore. And we have things to talk about. And we have people who we're gonna ask questions or answer questions on Periscope if you're out there. We'll try and maybe hit over to Twitter as well if you're there. But join us. Let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about some NBA tonight. We had an ESPN game early, a Celtics-Lakers rivalry game, although it's not much of a rivalry. What did you think? What did you take away from that game right off the bat?
I thought the Celtics looked good. 10-game winning streak. They've continued to look better in each game, I think. They had a big lead, and they almost blew it. The Lakers came back, and I thought that was really good for the Lakers. I think it's important when you have a young team to show some fight. Julius Randle really kind of sparked things for the Lakers in that comeback. He was the only guy who looked like he actually wanted to be in the game. But with that being said, the Celtics are a really good team, and the Lakers are not. So, I wasn't really surprised by the outcome, but it was enjoyable to watch all those Celtics young guys, man. They never quit on a play. Their defense is impeccable, and they really share the basketball. It's impressive.
Well, by the way, it was also a joy to watch the Lakers not fight and keep in there as well. I keep feeling like Julius Randle simply doesn't fit with what they want to do. There's just something about the way he plays. Although he did give it up early and did make a couple of passes, which was important, because for me, when I watch him, a lot of times I feel like he's just intent on just scoring the ball, going to his left every time, and not quite doing a lot of other things. So it looks like they've gotten to him a little bit where he's now trying to do that. KCP, man, I'm not a fan anymore. I was a big fan. I thought he was going to do well. I just don't. Something about the way he plays is rubbing me wrong.
Is it because he's a shooter that can't shoot?
What's weird? I didn't text that to you, did I?
No.
Because I texted it to somebody else then earlier. I'm like, yeah, he's not a shooter, but he thinks he is, and it's frustrating, man. And especially because off his hand, it just doesn't. It's just not a good shooter's look. I don't know. You know what I mean? Can you explain more about what that is? It's
weird. I don't know why he's not a good shooter. The mechanics don't look funky or anything. He just cannot shoot. He had a wide open corner three. And he shot an air ball. It's one of the worst misses I've ever seen in the NBA. It was horrific. Just completely wide open practice sort of corner three and just got nothing. And it was just, you could see the entire Laker team just get deflated by him missing everything. It's one thing to miss. That was a horrible miss. It's not great. $17 million. Doesn't buy as much as it used to, I guess.
Right, and here's the thing about the Lakers, because there were a lot of moments where like Baines was just manhandling them. They kept getting these. They're playing small ball against bigger guys, and they were just taking them down low, sealing them, and holding them down low. There's nothing like Ingram would get stuck behind Baines and just forget about it. Nothing you can do. Clarkson got stuck down low against Morris on switches. So that's a real problem if they're going to try and do that kind of small ball switchy stuff, because at least against the Celtics, a veteran team, they went and just hammered them down there. And if they could have avoided that, then the game gets even closer, and who knows what happens by the end.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. Again, wasn't the worst that we've seen the Lakers play this year. I still am going to continue to question Walton's rotation stuff. Bogut and Corey Brewer were the first two guys off the bench.
Yes.
I mean, enough said, right? Like that's just it's problematic. I don't think, and I don't want to sit here and talk about Lonzo because, frankly, I've talked about Lonzo enough tonight.
Not here
on Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm burnt out on talking about Lonzo. Lonzo's been terrible. That's it. He will be fine. Most rookies are terrible in their first 11 games, right? It's okay.
Okay.
But right now he's not good.
Well, okay.
Go into Luke Walton. He's not exactly putting these guys in a position to succeed, and that's a problem. Part of it is I don't think he's got a real coaching staff. He's got a bunch of guys that he's buddies with, and I just don't think that's great. Like, who's the X's and O's guys there?
Right. That is an interesting question. And I think it's also attention to detail. I kind of feel like they just, they're not quite, the spacing is not quite right for them. And then the timing of the action is also just not there. Now, they're young and they're learning or whatever, but he's been there for a year now. And a lot of these players, have been around, except for, I guess, Kuzma and Ball, which are, major parts of their machine. But there's no question that they need to get back to some sort of attention to detail, or he's got to figure out how to communicate that better so that they do it more. And then they'll get better shots, I think. But even still, there's something going on there. And with Ball, I want to say, yes, he had some terrible rookie plays, just terrible misses and off balance and turnovers. But he did have moments where you can see what is going on and why everyone was hyped about him. So, and even defensively, there are moments too where he's doing some things that are really encouraging. So, I don't know. I'm willing to give him a huge amount of rope here before we get too negative on him.
Right. I don't think that he is a starting level player today. And it's not because he right now, of all players in the NBA with at least 100 field goal attempts, he has the lowest effective field goal percentage. It's like 34.1%. He's like Anthony Bennett level offensive numbers right now. It's fine. I don't care. I think he's going to be okay. Again, you and I talked ad nauseum all summer. The guy plays the right way. I think his floor is backup player. So, that's already a pretty high start for a professional basketball player. Well, right? Okay. I'm not saying I don't think there's a complete bust potential.
Right.
Yeah. But he's not coming out of the gate like a lot of guys do.
Yeah.
Jason Tatum has looked really good. He looks like he belongs on the court.
Yeah.
And frankly, Lonzo doesn't. He looks a lot like Brandon Ingram did most of last year.
Okay, that's kind of fair. I mean, let's not ignore the 7 assists a game he's getting and the 7 rebounds or whatever. He's having a positive effect. Now, remember, Anthony Bennett couldn't do anything, and at least there's moments here where Lonzo's making an impact, and so we'll see. But let's go on the other side of the ball because no pun intended. Because I'm thinking about Kyrie Irving. Have you noticed? So my thesis is that Kyrie Irving is a different player in Boston. And everyone's going to look at the numbers, and they're exactly the same. He's not having any more assists or whatever. But I got to tell you, with the eyeballs, it's different. He looks like he wants to facilitate more. The role is different. But yet, what I'm getting to is that it's like every Cavs fan does not want to even entertain that idea because it makes LeBron potentially look bad because he was maybe holding Kyrie back. Is this a phenomenon you've noticed?
I'm with you on the eye test. He does look like he's working harder. It looks like, especially on defense, he's working harder. The numbers are very similar. But yeah, I don't know that he's playing better. Remember, he was really, really good last year. I just think it's everyone around him moves more, and it actually makes it look like more is happening. If that makes any sense. Does that make any sense? He's scoring a lot more within the flow of an offense, and maybe that's why the eye test is the way it is. His defensive effort has been much improved, but on offense, the offense was already he had the offense in Cleveland.
Well, he had it, but here the role was different. So he played a real traditional shooting guard, basically. In my eye, he never. And there were stretches in Cleveland where he wasn't passing. We've talked about it before. He was just going to that hole, and he was going to ignore any other open shots, open passes to shoot it. And here, it's a little bit harder now to guard him on that because he definitely has more of an eye as he's scanning and looking to make the pass. And so now the defense has to be a little bit more on their toes. He's still getting his ISOs, so that looks very much the same as he did in Cleveland. But there is a lot more movement, I feel like, anyway, as the system goes for Brad Stevens. But I just think that he is existing in this offense differently. And I don't know. I have to imagine, because by the way, I checked the potential assists and passes per game because I'm like, it's got to be higher. And it's not. It's not higher than it was last year. That said, he's playing a little bit less per game, which gives him some more energy probably to play defense better, which is big. I do think it's less of a statistical thing and more of a feel thing for me, what I'm watching. And I do find it really interesting that all the people from Cleveland, would you be yelling at me saying, I've never said anything positive about Kyrie until now, which is like absurd to the nth degree. And at that, like, the implication could very well be, even though I'm not saying it, that LeBron was holding him back, and if maybe there will be a video on that coming up soon that has that title. But never mind that. I'm not saying that now, but I might say that in the video in a minute. So,
Again, I think it's we're being tricked a little bit by the eye test. His performance is. I mean, I'm looking right now. He's actually so far this season his per 36 numbers. His points per game are down. His shots are down by, I don't know, 0.3. So basically same number of shots. He's not shooting it as well from the field or from 3-point land. He is taking fewer free throw a game. He does have about one more steal a game. So, but other than that, his numbers are almost identical. So
right. I
think that this is the eye test tricking us a little bit. And again, it's because things look a little bit more cohesive.
Okay.
It's not just, hey, I'm going to take a turn dribbling around and then passing to someone. Now, LeBron, you do it. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that's what it is. Okay. I think that you and I have a bias toward teams that play the way Boston do, where there's a lot of cutting and a lot of off-ball movement and things like that. Kyrie has been good, but he was good last year. So I think he's just they've blended him into what they already do pretty well.
Yes, and it's been on him as well. He's made that transition very nicely. He's also, if you believe what he says in the press, has really enjoyed having Brad Stevens as a coach and
I believe that.
And so, and by the way, it is shade to Lou. It's shade to LeBron. I mean, that's what I'm reading into that, or I'm choosing to read into that as well, because he didn't talk like that when he was in Cleveland, and that's understandable for a guy like him who wanted to be a different role anyway. He's going to feel that way. So we'll have to find out how this plays out for Boston. Do we feel like, they are, especially with Morris back, they look better already. They certainly are the prohibitive favorites to be number one in the East. And are they going to beat the Cavs in the playoffs?
It's insane, man. They're so deep, and even without Hayward, they look really good. They're very cohesive. Al Horford, criminally underrated. I know he wasn't in the game tonight, but right. I mean, he's just been so great defensively and offensively this year. It feels like it, man. It's crazy that a team that added 11 new players during the offseason could come into the first couple weeks of the season and look this good. Now, they may regress to about where we expected them in the low 50s in wins or whatever. But it's amazing that they don't look like they miss Hayward at all. And you can only imagine how good this would be if Hayward was out there. I think that right now, if you're looking, they've got the best record in the league. So it certainly feels like they're on the way to the 1 seed. It's crazy.
Yeah, and because they're so deep, you might want to head over to some fantasy basketball and pick up some of their players if I were you, because you might get some value every once in a while on some of those nights when you see, like Horford, for instance, sits and guess who? Aaron Baines. Really good numbers.
21 points and 9 rebounds tonight.
Yes, and if only there was a place that we could go to play fantasy basketball, like somewhere like DraftKings.com, you could have made some serious money. And if you listen to our podcast and watch my videos and follow you on Twitter, you'll probably get even more really interesting insights into guys that night who will give you the best value.
Sure.
Right, Dave?
Sure. Yes.
So
we're constantly talking about sleepers.
Yes.
Although I've been so wrong about Rodney Hood, and I feel terrible.
Me too. I don't know. At some point,
it's weird, right?
Yeah.
We really all the signs were there. All the signs were there, but I got to own up to it. He's not look good. I also didn't expect Donovan Mitchell to start, so
yeah, but he's looked great, and I hope you're getting him on your fantasy teams. Well, from what I saw the other night, he looked really good.
When he was 3 of 21.
Whatever game I was watching with him the other night, he had a couple of plays that were just like whoa, both ends of the court. And but just to finish my thought here on this whole thing, so we can get that done, is so DraftKings. If you go to DraftKings.com, there's a lot of ways to play. They have beginner and casual contests where you'll play against people of similar skill level. All you got to do is pick 8 players and stay under the $50,000 salary cap. And then you get the points, for assists and blocks and rebounds and all sorts of stuff like that. And, you can get a new team every day without any commitment, which is, I think, the greatest part about this, because I always couldn't stand the legacy fantasy, which was going all season long or years into the future. I could never handle it. So if you go to DraftKings.com now and use my code CoachNick, you get a free game with your first deposit. And you can get into a game you get to win your share of $10,000 in total prizes. That could be tomorrow night. So don't forget, if you go to DraftKings.com, use my code CoachNick to play for free with your first deposit. Only at DraftKings, the game inside the game. So you have to do a $5 minimum deposit, and then you're in like Flynn with a free game from me with Coach Nick and that code. So head over there, make it happen, Captain. And Dave, I expect to see you in one of our games we'll be doing soon. Like we'll do a private draft, and we'll all see who can pick the best team.
Sure.
So
I will win. I will only pick players from the Celtics bench.
Yes.
Because they're cheap and they're all good.
You might not win that one, but we'll see. Okay. But moving on, let's get some questions. Do we have anybody from Periscope yet who has some good questions? In fact, we do, and I saw some. Do you have anyone right now?
I got someone that asked if we thought Kyrie was an MVP candidate. His numbers aren't quite there, but from a narrative standpoint, absolutely.
Yes, if they're number one and they, obviously you can't vote for it after when the playoffs start, because that would have been a real interesting thing if like he leads them past the Cavs to the finals or whatever. But I think that his numbers are going to be, what? I'm sorry, you listed him before and I'm now blanking on him. They were how many points is he scoring?
He was like 23, 6, 2.3 steals, something like that.
Yeah, it's tough. I think he'd have to get to 26 and.
Probably.
8, right?
Yeah, probably. I think if we're picking a MVP front runner right now, it's Steph or it's hard to say Giannis because the team just hasn't performed, even though he's been amazing. Porzingis, maybe. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah,
it's Steph and then maybe LeBron.
Yeah, right. LeBron's doing really well. You got to throw him in there as well. So yeah, the narratives are going to have to take hold at some point. Probably about 30 games in the season or so. We'll start to get a handle on that. So we'll see. So yeah, as of now, I would agree with you. He's not quite there in that discussion right now, but it's still a really great feel good story for the Celtics after the whole terrible injury and now that they're winning so much. So let's see here. What's next? I saw some other ones here. Do you have one? Here's one. George 34 Marks asks, do you think that Rondo will help the Pelicans when he comes back?
No.
No. Is
Yeah.
it because they're already just too far from help?
Yeah, but also, I get Rondo was great in the how was it, 2 games last year in the playoffs before he got hurt?
Yeah.
But when he comes back, it essentially forces Drew Holiday to play out of position. And no,
yeah, that's true.
Listen, man, that team is going to live or die with Boogie and AD, and Boogie has been really, really good. As a matter of fact, Boogie might even be an MVP candidate.
Okay.
If they make if they're a top 5 seed, which isn't going to happen, but
yeah. I don't know. He just frustrates me either way. I don't know why, because I like the skill level and he does well on offense. I think it's just a transition getting back on D. And that's only some of the time, and then where it gets exposed, it's a problem. But for some reason, that rubs me the wrong way, and I don't really know why. Is it like he's complaining to the refs at some point? He's not gunning down. There's something about that drives me a little nuts, and I'm probably too brutal on him more than I should be.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, man. I think we both kind of get frustrated at the same thing when a guy is actually really talented despite some flaws that would be easily corrected.
Yeah,
it's frustrating as hell. Boogie Cousins has like Hall of Fame level talent, and a lot of the issues he has are about effort and attitude.
Yes, exactly. And so
two things that are easily fixed.
Well, obviously not that easy. If Calipari couldn't do it, oh. So at any rate, we have some other questions here. First of all, Worldwide Wob is out there. Rob Perez, my buddy, who's left me for the other coast. So we expect to hear a question from him at some point. But Mark A. Gunnels, another connection we've made on Twitter, is now over on Periscope asking us, what's your takeaway on Andrew Wiggins thus far? I think Tibbs needs to do more action for him. Well, we got a chance to see him tonight. What do you think?
I love Wiggins' offensive game. He's got a spin move that he busts out in traffic that is just, it's electric. And then he had that amazing finish tonight, kind of around JaVale, where he didn't use the glass. It was just incredible touch. So offensively, I like Wiggins a lot. It's the defense that I've got huge problems with, and I can't figure out what the issue is. It's sort of like, with Karl Anthony Towns, I can tell you it's he has lack of feel on defense. He is always going for the big play, and that gets him out of position a lot. So those are the problems with Karl Anthony Towns. With Wiggins, you watch him and you feel like he should be playing good defense. There's nothing that is super glaring, but he falls asleep when he's off ball, especially weak side, and you just can't do that in the NBA. And so there's that. And then sometimes I think he overplays on the ball and things like that. So if Thibodeau can figure this out, Wiggins is going to be really good and worth that max. But if he never figures out the defense and he's just a 20 to 22 point a game scorer with no defense, is that gonna be worth the max? I don't know.
Right, and meanwhile, the Timberwolves are, I think it's reflected by the loss. Yeah, they're 7-4 right now, so they're actually doing well, and they're winning some games.
I'm putting that on Jimmy Butler though.
I didn't like Jimmy Butler's defense tonight, by the way.
Tonight it was not good. It was not good. But in the other games, he has been good.
Yeah, and it's weird to me because normally your defense isn't hot and cold, right? Normally you're pretty consistent if you're a defender, you know how to play defense, you're going to give us a lot. And that was weird to me. I don't know if Jimmy Butler was sick or what about it, but something was off with him. I need to check the box score. Did he do well on offense tonight? Probably not.
Should have had a box score.
So we'll have to find that out. Any other questions you got from Periscope?
Let me look. Why does Steve Kerr play all 13 players? That's one for you from Jay Varela.
Well, we've already answered that question, I think, a couple times in the podcast, right? Basically, I think he doesn't care if he's 12-8 the first 20 games, as long as he can play 13 guys to figure out what he's got and give everyone a shot. I think that's it's good coaching, right?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything, right? It's like the pop stuff where you're getting your bench ready. It's also some forced adversity. If you're having Kevon Looney out there in crunch time, you're going to run into some trouble. Although Kevon Looney every now and then does some amazing stuff, which you just don't realize that he has in his game. So yeah, it's sort of like strength in numbers, which someone just put in here. It's playing all those guys keeps everyone ready and on their toes. But you watch how Omri Caspi plays, and you just realize that guy needs to be in the short rotation. He needs to be up there with Livingston and Iguodala. He needs to be getting 20-something minutes a night.
But so does Bell, right?
I think Jordan Bell is. David West is the best center they have on the roster, and I think Jordan Bell is right behind him, breathing down his neck. David West is obviously a professional and has been doing it for a long time and is really smart, whereas Bell is just a freak athlete who is getting a lot of what he makes happen is heart and hustle. Which I hate because you can't quantify that, but at the same time you can see it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that he needs to be getting more minutes instead of having these, DNP CDs, or I guess he was inactive even. Right. So I'm looking at Jimmy Butler because we talked about him. He had 11 points tonight, 5 of 12 shooting for -16.
Yeah.
Teague was minus 20. Wiggins was minus 16 as well.
So there you go. Something was off. And you know what? That something could very well be having to go against Klay Thompson and Andre Iguodala and the rest of the team. I mean, that'll do it to you. And while you're busy chasing Klay on the other side, too. So,
I think it is because he was guarded so much by Steph Curry tonight.
By the way, okay, let's talk about that because that came up. It was interesting. Designress, or however you say that, it was asking, do you think everyone noticed Steph plays great defense now? There's clearly a narrative trying to be driven by ESPN tonight. Did you get that?
I picked up on that.
And so they already had a pre-canned interview with Steph. They set up Steve Kerr with the question at the timeout. But I have to tell you, I felt like Steph, brought it and was showing it. Maybe he knew it as well. But didn't it seem a little bit strange? Jeff Van Gundy had a little monologue too, going to commercial about it.
Yeah, it seems like ESPN's finally catching up to what you and I have been talking about for the better part of a year. Steph Curry is a really good defender.
Yes. Listen, I'm gonna have to toot my own horn though, because it's been more than a year, and right, I think I did. Well,
for you, yeah.
Yeah, and I only want to do that because I've still taken so much shit for that it's like it's not right. It's wrong. But yes. He is a good defender. Okay, if I said elite, I'll come clean. And by the way, I'm going to blame Rob, Worldwide Wob out there, because when I was looking for a title for my Steph Curry defense video, I was like, I don't know what I said. I texted Rob, and he wrote it to me, and I still have the text probably, where it said, why Steph Curry is an elite defender. And I shrugged. I was like, okay, I'll use that. So I blame him for all that shit I took. Although I think what he was doing was right, was we wanted to move the needle, so we kind of had to go really extreme to get more people to move in somewhat in our direction. And sure. So I thought, but either way, I thought it was interesting. I thought Steph really was able to keep guys in front, and he was able to be active on the weak side like he always is anyway. And maybe that's finally going to shift. And it took an ESPN broadcast to do it. Yeah,
well, I mean, he's stout.
He is stout.
Right?
Not like James Harden, though.
Not like James Harden. Stout in a different way. I mean, he's just really strong.
Yeah.
Uses his chest a lot. Really gets his chest up into guys.
He's chesty.
Yeah, he is. He just does a really good job of using his strengths and also playing strong team defense. He plays the passing lanes when he has help. He's a really high IQ defender who happens to have a bunch of really good defenders on his team, so he doesn't get enough credit. Right? Like, I mean, he's got one of the greatest defenders of all time, Draymond Green, on his team. So he's not going to get credit.
And by the way, there were a couple of times when he was guarding, I think, who is it? Not Wiggins, but he was guarding Butler. And, and Draymond just came over and shadowed right next to him, basically like somewhat double teaming him. And that's how smart Draymond is, but it's also how stagnant the Timberwolves offense was. Where, like, literally Draymond didn't have to guard anybody because they weren't moving very much, and it was easy for him. So I think it was an interesting, confluence of all those things. It's definitely worth. I want to take a really deep dive into Minnesota to figure out what is going wrong. Or I mean, it's not wrong. They're 7-4, but I like to see a little bit more of what's bothering me, maybe what's bothering you, to figure it out in more concrete terms. We have a good question out here, though, we could move to, which would help us pivot, which is. Oh my goodness! Howdy Moose asks: Is the Thunder overhyped by everyone, or just let's talk about the Thunder?
It's been a weird fit so far, to say the least. You and I have commented on a regular basis about Billy Donovan's questionable offensive coaching, and there's a certain point where you have to look back and you have to say, okay, so. Billy Donovan has never done anything on an offense that I've been impressed with. Let's just start there. It's in college or whatever. In college, he was a good recruiter. He got good players. And college is just a different game. In the NBA, I've never seen him do anything beyond a pick and roll or like bringing guys off a pin down. Just basic stuff. There's nothing, no beautiful game aspect to what Billy Donovan coaches. And you don't have to do that, right? It's not necessary. It's not a requirement, but it would help.
Right.
But Scotty Brooks we had the same criticisms about him. Now, at a certain point, you got to start looking at the personnel and say, okay, so what's the common denominator? And, it's Russ. Now, with that being said, I have watched Russ try to get people more involved this year. I've watched Russ's improvement on defense. He's engaged when he's off ball. When he's weak side, he is now actually in the play. He's not leaving his man early to get a rebound. He's actually playing on the defensive end. Okay,
he is.
But the offense is atrocious. There's a lot of standing around.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because if you look at the rating right now, probably when you add Paul George, they're second in defensive rating. It's early, but they're second in defensive rating. But they are 19th on offense, which has got to be an all-time low for them in the last 6 years probably. Because even last year with a not a talented offensive roster, I think they were better. If only we could press one button and look. Their offensive rating was, it was 16th last year. I totally missed that by the end of last year. So we've already seen this issue. What's interesting, though, is, Donovan's trying. He's getting all the action that they want, that the normal action that Paul George would be used to, a lot of pin downs on the right side, and then a lot of just cross screens. And it's almost like every time they run their offense, it's like Paul George is getting a cross screen to the low block from one block to the other block, basically. And I thought it's interesting to me because it's like it's almost too common. They're doing it too often now. And then Melo just seems to be kind of, just existing, and sort of being whatever he can do. And then it's clearly Russ is taking a hit on his scoring. He's made an effort not to score as much to get them going. So, is this the thing they can get out of by just, playing together and getting more experience together?
I mean, it's possible, but right now it really looks like they're just doing open gym. Yeah. All three of their big three are averaging 17 shots a game. They're all shooting like between 41 and 43%. It's pretty incredible. They just haven't been good. Wow, this is crazy. All right, so I'm just looking at the stats. They are all averaging 20.1 points per game.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. So
that's like end of the days.
That's weird. So that really makes it feel like it's your turn, my turn, your turn, right? And that's a problem. We've seen this before. We see now how this works out. Now, what's crazy is their net rating as a team is actually positive. They should have a better record. They lost a couple of close games that they probably, might have swung the other way, which last year they had the opposite, right? They won a lot of close games, compared to how many they lost. They won an overwhelming majority of their close games, which is part of why Russ, got MVP. But, it's problematic to say the least. And I think they've got to have a real, come to Jesus conversation on the offense and maybe even consider trying to find a guy to come in there and coach the offense if Billy Donovan just can't do it. You and I have talked about the front office needing to empower Billy Donovan or any coach that's in there, and I think that's still the case. He's got to have some sort of say in what they do on the court. Otherwise, this is what you're going to run into. Yeah. It's going to be a David Blatt situation.
I agree. And then as a result, it's going to be a problem because, if this keeps going and they're 500 or whatever, Paul George is already in L.A. probably the way this is going, and that's a problem for them. Melo is is this his last year too on the contract?
Well, he's got a $27 million option for next year. There's no way he is opting out.
Right. So, they're going to be stuck with, him and Russ. So, yeah, they went for something. I don't think it's working out. I don't know if it's going to change. And, at some point we might have to take a step back. I just don't want to be involved in the whole Russ hating thing right now tonight. But, at some point you got to look around and realize, what is the common denominator, like you said? What is causing some of these issues continually over the years? I know that maybe KD gets some of the blame as well and deserves some of the blame, but I don't know. At some point, we're going to get the tell-all book, and they're going to talk about something, and it might end up being Russ and the culture around that. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Another question? Anybody out there?
Let me look.
I see one. Thoughts on the Spurs' success without Kawhi and expectations on how much better Kawhi has gotten? That's from Momo Me Ready.
Yeah. Well, so Pop came out the other day and said that he's behind schedule, that the rehab has not gone well. And that's troubling to hear. That quad injury, the tendinopathy, you don't want to hear that a guy's behind schedule with something like that. Because it could be something that keeps him out all year.
Yeah.
And that's, no one wants that.
I almost feel like
anyone would.
If it got to like halfway through, maybe the Spurs just shut him down. Like when I could see them just being that way and saying, you know what, we're not going to risk his future. I need to get Jeff Stotts on the show again to talk a little bit more about what that rehab is and what tendinopathy really is, because it's still a mystery to me.
It's an overuse injury.
Okay.
Of that quad tendon. Now that is the same exact tendon that Tony Parker tore. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Now, I mean, it's not like it's an uncommon injury for basketball players. I mean, it's a quad dominant sport. But this is why they're going to be very, very conservative about bringing him back. I mean, you use your quads a ton in basketball, and especially at this level. And so, I fully expect that they will just take their time. And I think I'm with you. There's a certain point where they may just say, we're going to shut it down for the year. Reggie Jackson had a similar issue last year, and you remember he just never looked right.
Right.
And it was like he needed the summer and doing nothing. So I mean, I'm hoping he's healthy. But with that being said, the Spurs look pretty damn good because the Spurs are going to spur, and we just death, taxes, and the Spurs winning 50+ games is about the only thing that you can guarantee in this country, unless you're rich and then you don't pay taxes. But if you watch what the Spurs are doing, Danny Green has been incredible. Player of the most improved player, incredible. He somehow learned to dribble. I used to hold my breath when he would dribble, especially into the lane. He's looked really, really good. And then Aldridge has been fantastic, and then getting, like we've talked about before, running down the court hard, getting deep, sealing early, getting touches early, scoring easy baskets, and so yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because on the earlier part of the season when I was watching some of the Spurs stuff, it didn't look good to me. And I was really concerned because it felt like they really needed Kawhi. It wasn't working that well. But certainly in the last several games, they've sort of started to figure some things out and making life difficult for other teams. So, it's not surprising that Pop is probably getting a better handle on what rotations they need to get out there and how they're going to attack and what sets they're going to run and really get that refined. So, yeah, even without Kawhi, they're going to compete and they're going to be right there in the, I don't know, it's still they could be top 4 or 5, easy. But, again, without Kawhi, they ain't going to get out of the second round of the playoffs.
No, and the first round may even be a struggle.
Yeah, so that's a tough one. Well, listen, I think we got another great podcast in the books. We had a lot of great questions and a lot of great people out here contributing. So, Dave, it's, as always, not surprising, but always a pleasant experience to get a good podcast in. Yeah,
it's been too long. We went 9 days or something.
Oh, yeah.
Stop going out of town.
All the sponsors are clamoring for, more content, so we got to get back on it. You're going out of town?
No, I said you stopped going out of town.
I know. I'm now stopped going out of town. I was out of town last night. And stay tuned for that. We filmed with the BAM, official testers of the NBA for strength and conditioning and all that stuff. And so we got really cool filming. We're going to continue to refine and start to get that to market. So stay tuned for that. My podcast, if you just are joining us, I launched a politics and culture podcast you guys have to listen to. It's called Can You Hear Me Shaking My Head? And right now, you can find it on my timeline. I'll keep tweeting it out. It's going to be on iTunes as soon as I get my second one uploaded and ready to go. But check it out. It's interesting stuff. Dave, what do you want to shout out?
I guess just my podcast on the NBA with Dave Dufour. And, follow me on Twitter at Dave Dufour NBA.
Yes, and as always, make sure you like and subscribe to us on iTunes here, the B-Ball Breakdown Podcast. And I don't think there's anything else I can tell you besides, don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Dave?
Yes, I am.